Hello and welcome back to another episode of Prime Sports Network Cardinals podcast. I will be your host, Braden Dowers, once again going over the last three series and the Cardinals' previous road trip where they started off facing the Milwaukee Brewers, Miami Marlins, and Cincinnati Reds. So without further ado, let's just jump right into the Brewers series where we started off that Friday with a 5-1 loss. Adam Wainwright was on the mound versus Brandon Woodruff. This was our that was the Brewers' first home game of the year. Waino was kind of off from the very beginning, let up a couple runs in the first inning. Woodruff worked himself into some trouble and got out of the game after 5 innings, but the Cardinals couldn't ever really get anything going. Tommy Edman did hit a home run, however, and wasn't a great first game for us, whereas the second game was a lot more telling, with how hopefully Miles Mikolas will be for the remainder of the year, as he pitched a solid 7 innings. Andrew Kisner got the start. Edman and Nolan both went deep again, bringing Tommy's total home run count to 3, and Nolan was at 4 by this point. And Michaelis looked great. We were all over Freddie Peralta, just like the last start that we were on against him. And the Cardinals ended up winning 10-1, and just an overall really good performance by them. And then the next day, I wasn't able to watch the majority of this game, but Steven Matz threw a solid, I believe, 5 2/3 to around 6 innings. Offense couldn't really get anything going, but we did win 2-1. Paul DeJong, I remember, had a double down the left field line, which was pretty solid. Brewers hit Victor Cantini hit a home run in the 8th inning, but Gio shut the door, and the bullpen was very effective in all 3 games, to be honest. And then the last game, we lost. Dakota Hudson made his second appearance on the year. He struggled again, walked the bases loaded, and then walked in a couple runs, allowing 3 in just the first inning. Albert Pujols hit an absolute moonshot, but it overall wasn't enough, and the Brewers were able to get some more runs, and we lost 6-5. But after this Brewers series, Nolan Arenado was named NL Player of the Week with 4 home runs, and overall was just really damn impressive and really damn good. It was a good series. If you're going to split with the Brewers, at least you're doing it on the road. Good way to open off your first road trip. Then the next series, we had an off day and then traveled down to Miami, where Waino made his bounce back start and got a 5-1 win and looked pretty solid. Pujols scored from first that game, and it was hilarious. Everybody loved it. Yachty was giving him shit. Basically, the entire dugout was. Tommy had a couple hits that game. Pujols had some more hits. Arenado looked good. Goldie looked solid. He kind of struggled in that Brewers series, though. Waino bounced back, gave us a solid 5 2/3, and only allowed a solo shot. And then the next day, Miles Mikolas looked like a Cy Young candidate with a 2-0 win over Sandy Alcantara, former St. Louis Cardinal, who ended up going 8 innings, not allowing any runs, kind of like the last start against the Cardinals. And then the moment that they had another pitcher in there, Nolan hit a home run just barely over the wall, and we ended up winning 2-0. And Gio ended up having to work back-to-back days. Got it a little scary there in the ninth. They had a couple runners on, but it wasn't too bad. And then the final game of the series, Jordan Hicks was the starter, and the Cardinals just lost that one. Wasn't the best game for the offense or for the pitching, and we lost 5-1. And then with the Cincinnati series, Steven Matz came out 1-4-2, and Goldie caught on fire for this series, I believe going 8 for 14 overall. Some random stat that Jeremy Frank was able to find on Twitter that I saw was this was only the second series in MLB history in which, at Great American Ballpark, in which no home runs were hit by either team, which was pretty absurd. Nobody had any true power. Matz looks solid once again, so he's had 2 good outings in a row after the horrible outing against Pittsburgh. And then the second game, we won 5-0. Hudson finally looked strong, but Paul DeJong, this is kind of where everybody has started to lose faith in him because he looked absolutely ass. The rest of the offense looked okay, however. And then today, Waino looks shaky once again. He's never been good at Great American Ballpark. The Reds are the only team that he has a negative record against, and we ended up losing 4-1. The offense couldn't get going at all outside of back-to-back doubles by Goldschmidt and O'Neill. But the overall consensus from this series, we won or split in all of them. Nothing to be ashamed of, and the real test is going to be facing the Mets when we come back to Busch Stadium tomorrow. Overall, the pitching looked significantly better, and I'm a lot less worried about where we're going to be because if Michaelis and Matz can look like they have, we're going to be fine when Flaherty comes back. Jake Woodford looked solid in his inning today. Ryan Helsley's been great. Gio's looked really good, and everything in between. The bullpen's just been really strong. Then on the offensive side, it needs to get going, specifically at the shortstop position and in the outfield. O'Neill struggled a bit, Bader struggled a bit, and Carlson's definitely struggled. They've got all three of them have had a couple off days to try and get themselves going mentally, but it just really hasn't worked out. None of them. O'Neill has the only home run, and that came back on an opening day. There's not much going on in the outfield. Shortstop, DeJong's been ass. Sosa, in his limited time, has been okay. He's been better than DeJong, but he's still not great. And then Yachty has been offensive liability, and we're 4-4 in starts with Yachty, whereas we're 5-1 in starts with Kisner, and that's one of the players that I want to highlight. He's probably would be named my player of the week ever or since the last Cardinals game because his effect has been massive. I know that Nolan's been the obvious choice, but Kisner is probably the most under the radar guy that I'm really liking to see on the Cardinals right now, considering we're 5-1 with him behind the plate and only 4-4 with Yachty. So it'd be really nice to get him in some more starts. What I think wouldn't be too terrible for the remainder of the year at this point, because it's obvious that Pujols isn't going to be playing every day. Yachty or Waino obviously isn't going to be playing every day. There's no reason for Yachty to either. Just let them get their time in, let them go out. Yachty doesn't need to continue to be this absolute workhorse because it's clear that Kisner's ready to take this job at this point because he has looked really good so far to start the year. But with all of that being said, let's go down to Memphis, where I think we can easily find our replacement for the shortstop position. Nolan Gorman hit 7 home runs in 7 days, and then earlier today he hit his 8th home run and was finally a home run that was not a solo shot. Yeah, 8 home runs and 9 RBIs. You call him up, put him at second, put Tommy at short, DFA DeJong for all I care. Not really. You probably want to trade him. But you have to find a way to get Gorman into this team. There's no way Mozeliak can just sit there and keep looking down at him and say, no, we don't want to call you up. Yepes has looked solid. He has 5 home runs, a 260 average, and the most RBIs on the team with 18. Matthew Liebertore looked good in his last start, going 7 innings with 0 earned runs. And then Jonathan Oviedo in his last start went 6 innings, 1 run. And overall, Memphis is 9-9 overall. They've probably had the most effective players. Brendan Donovan continues to look strong. Alec Burleson's looked okay. Connor Capel has been a solid player as well. Overall, in Memphis, there's been a lot of things to like, especially when people like Lars Nootbaar, you could possibly see get sent down because he hasn't been that effective. Corey Dickerson has been taking better at-bats. And because of his contract, he's obviously going to stay in the majors. But I think that there are some shakeups that we could see in the coming weeks, specifically because the rosters are going to go down from 28 back to 26, which is where they've been at. But because of the shortened spring training, they've allowed 28 players to start the year. I think some names that we could get to see sent down would be Jake Woodford and Palantine. I believe I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but those are the 2 guys that I could see getting sent down, or Aaron Brooks. I know Drew Verhagen, he got placed on the IL. I'm assuming that's a phantom IL placement because they just don't want him up in the majors because he has been the only guy in the bullpen that just hasn't looked that good. And then they called up the pitcher that we got that the Angels designated for assignment, and then we claimed him. So he's up in the majors now. But I think Woodford is almost a lock to get sent back down, even though he's looked really good. There's just no role for him in this team right now. He's thrown 4 innings and has looked good in all 4 of them. But it's just we can't find a spot for him right now. And I think that he'd be an effective starter down in Memphis, and that would be good to see. Now, looking at Springfield, right now they are 6-9 overall. They haven't stood out in any way whatsoever. On the pitching side, there's no massive top prospects down there that you can look at and say, yeah, they're going to be in the majors. Moises Gomez is raking right now with a 462 average and a 1,654 OPS. And then the only player that's really making a big notice down, or the only big prospect down in Springfield, is Jordan Walker, who has a 326 average and an 837 OPS. I was down in Springfield over the weekend. I was not able to go see any games, but I was able to drive by Hammons Fields 2 or 3 times, and they got to see a win today. Now looking down in Aurora, this is probably where I am the most excited for people because I'm a massive Mason Wynn fan, and he has been absolutely destroying. He has a 455 average and a 1,197 OPS. He's been raking. And then the Cardinals' first-round pick, Michael Mcgreevey, has been insane. Him and Graceffo, again, probably pronouncing that name wrong. 2 really solid pitching prospects who have been throwing gas with ERAs under 1 right now. I believe Mcgreevey is sitting at .51 and Graceffo is sitting at .54. So overall, they're doing pretty good. Aurora is 7-7 right now. And the Cardinals minor league system, there are definitely names here. There are definitely good players that we need, or that we will eventually see later in this season. If Nolan Gorman isn't up in the majors by June, there's going to be an issue because he needs to find his way into the lineup, especially with how good he's playing right now. The Cardinals are going to be facing the New York Mets back at Busch Stadium at 6:45 p.m. Max Scherzer is going to be taking the mound, the St. Louis native, versus Miles Mikolas, who has looked really good this year. This is going to probably be another really good pitching matchup with between the two. Scherzer has kind of dominated the Cardinals in his past couple starts. He always has a little bit of extra oomph against them because he wanted to play with us, and then Mozeliak said no, which is kind of infuriating, but it's okay. The second game of the series is again at 6:45. Chris Bassett versus Jordan Hicks. Again, Hicks didn't look too good in his first start. This is a game where I would like to see Jake Woodford get some more playing time, because if you're going to have Jordan Hicks out there for 2 innings, you should probably have Woodford out there for 2 or 3 as well, and they would get you through 5 or 6 innings before you turn it over to the actual bullpen guys who are only going to throw 1 inning. Chris Bassett's a solid pitcher, and then the final game of the series, I believe we have Steven Matz taking on Carlos Carrasco. Matz, again, has looked really good. He's going to be facing his former team. This time it's at noon. And it's worth mentioning that Matz is the guy that made Steve Cohen go into a blind range and throw money at the wall. So this entire series, this is going to be the Cardinals' first true test, because they've kind of been facing Mickey Mouse teams outside of the Brewers. The Marlins aren't good. The Reds aren't good. The Royals are and the Pirates are shit. So the Mets are probably the second best team in the NL right now, behind the Dodgers. The Cardinals are up there as well because all 3 of them are leading the divisions. So it'll obviously be a really good series between them. If the Cardinals can come away with 2 out of 3 against the Mets, that would be massive. And after that, then the Cardinals continue to play. Then the Diamondbacks come into town, and the Cardinals are going to need to take a bunch of games out of that series as well. So I'll get back to you with another Cardinals podcast after the Diamondback series, most likely, or whenever the next homestand ends. But overall, pretty good week for Cardinals baseball. Paul DeJong's kind of been struggling. The offense as well. Kisner needs to be stepping in. Ollie Marmol has done a good job managing. We haven't lost a series. And overall, you got to be happy with how the Cardinals are doing. But that's going to wrap it up for me today, guys. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe here on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at Braden Dowers or Show Me Baseball. Make sure to follow Prime Sports Network on Twitter at Prime S Network 1. And I'll see you in the next episode.